The desperate call to signal arrived at Earth's orbital command station at 0300 hours, cutting through the routine monitoring of deep space frequencies like a knife through silk. Lieutenant James Morrison had been drinking his fourth cup of coffee when the alert systems began screaming across every console in the communications bay. The translation matrix worked overtime to convert the alien language into something humans could understand, and what it revealed made Morrison's blood run cold. Captain Marcus Chon was pulled from his quarters within minutes. He arrived on the command deck, still fastening his uniform jacket, his dark eyes immediately focusing on the main display where the distress call played on repeat. The images showed a world burning. Elegant crystalline structures that had stood for thousands of years crumbled under sustained bombardment. Alien faces filled the screen, their features delicate and expressive, mouths open in silent screams as their civilization died around them. The species called themselves the Valorans. Chun had read about them in the Galactic Council databases. They were artists, philosophers, and scientists. Their entire culture had evolved on a world so peaceful that they had no word for murder in their primary language. They had reached the stars through cooperation and scientific advancement, never needing to develop weapons beyond simple tools. Now something was killing them systematically, and they were helpless to stop it. Commander Patricia Walsh stood beside Chun, her weathered face tight with controlled anger. She had spent 20 years in Earth's military, from the resource wars to the Mars colonies conflict. She knew what organized slaughter looked like, and this was textbook genocide. The attackers were methodical, targeting population centers first, then industrial facilities, and finally agricultural zones. They wanted the Valorans to suffer before they died. The Galactic Council had already received the same distress call. Chun pulled up their response with a few quick commands. The official statement made him want to put his fist through the display. The Council expressed deep concern. They called for diplomatic solutions. They proposed forming a committee to investigate the matter. They would do absolutely nothing while an entire species was wiped from existence. Chun looked at the assembled officers in the command center. These men and women had volunteered to protect Earth and her interests in a galaxy that viewed humanity with barely concealed suspicion. Earth was classified as a Class 15 death world, a planet so hostile that the fact humans had evolved there at all was considered a statistical impossibility. The Council member species came from gentle worlds where the most dangerous predator was smaller than a house cat. They found human capacity for violence disturbing and primitive. The tactical officer broke the silence. Commander Robert Hayes had served with Chun since their academy days. He understood how his captain thought. The Valoran system is 4 days away at maximum burn. The attackers have 17 capital ships in orbit and unknown ground forces. We can mobilize 8 ships within 6 hours. Hayes did not need to state the obvious. 8 against 17 was suicide by any reasonable military calculation. Chun studied the enemy fleet composition. The species attacking the Valorans called themselves the Krell Dominion. Intelligence files painted an ugly picture. The Krell had evolved as pack hunters on a world where everything competed for scarce resources. Their entire society was built on hierarchy and conquest. They had been expanding through the outer rim systems for 2 decades, absorbing weaker species or eliminating them entirely. The Council had issued sanctions and diplomatic protests. The Krell ignored them all. Admiral Jennifer Okonghu appeared on the communication screen from Earth Defense Headquarters. Her expression was unreadable, which meant she had already made her decision and was waiting to see if Chun would match it. She spoke with the quiet authority of someone who had commanded fleets during humanity's darkest hours. Captain Chun, you are aware this mission has no official authorization. If you proceed, Earth will publicly disavow your actions to maintain diplomatic relations with the Council. Chun felt something settle in his chest. He had known this moment would come eventually. Humanity had joined the galactic community hoping to find enlightened civilizations that had moved beyond war and conflict. Instead, they found species so comfortable in their peace that they had forgotten how to fight for it. The Council maintained order through economic pressure and social isolation, tools that meant nothing to species like the Krell, who simply did not care about galactic opinion. Admiral, with respect, I did not join the defense fleet to watch innocent people die while politicians debate procedure. Chun kept his voice level and professional. My crew volunteered for this mission. We understand the consequences. But we also understand that sometimes the only answer to violence is someone willing to stand against it. Okonkwo allowed herself the smallest smile. I was hoping you would say that. You have 6 hours to launch. Make them count. The transmission ended, leaving Chun alone with his decision and its implications. Earth would deny involvement if things went wrong. His crews would be branded as rogue elements, pirates acting without authorization. But they would also be the difference between the Valoran species surviving or becoming another footnote in galactic history. The mobilization happened with practiced efficiency. 8 ships of the Terran Defense Fleet prepared for immediate departure. Chun commanded the TDF Relentless, a heavy cruiser built for extended operations far from Earth. Joining him were 3 destroyers, 2 frigates, and 2 support vessels carrying marines and supplies. It was not an invasion force. It was a rescue mission that would inevitably turn into a war. Major Sophia Reeves boarded the Relentless, leading her marine contingent. She was built like a weapon herself, compact and efficient, with scars that told stories of battles across 3 colonies. Her troops were volunteers drawn from special operations units. They had trained for hostile environment combat, boarding actions, and urban warfare. Now they would test that training against an enemy that viewed mercy as weakness. The fleet launched precisely 6 hours after the distress call arrived. 8 human ships accelerated away from Earth at speeds that would have alarmed Council safety inspectors. The crews pushed reactors beyond recommended limits, knowing that every minute of delay meant more Valoran deaths. Behind them, Earth's government began drafting official statements denying any knowledge of their mission. Ahead, an entire species waited for salvation that their own government had abandoned them to find. Chun used the 4-day journey to study everything available about both species. The Valorans had been part of the Galactic Council for 3 centuries. They contributed art, music, and scientific research. They had never developed military forces beyond a small planetary security service equipped with non-lethal weapons. The concept of killing another sentient being was so foreign to their psychology that they literally could not comprehend it until it happened to them. The Krell were the opposite in every way. They organized into war packs led by the strongest and most aggressive individuals. They had developed space travel specifically to find new territory and resources to exploit. Their ships were built from salvage technology and captured vessels, ugly but functional. They fought without honor or restraint, viewing other species as either useful slaves or acceptable food sources. Dr. Elizabeth Park, the fleet's xenobiologist, provided additional context that made the situation clearer. The Valorans are herbivores from a world without large predators. Their entire evolutionary history involved cooperation and resource sharing. They have no instinctive understanding of predatory behavior. The Krell evolved as apex hunters. They understand only strength and dominance. These 2 species occupy completely different psychological realities. Chun absorbed this information and began formulating tactics. Traditional Council military doctrine emphasized defensive positions and minimal casualties. Human military theory had evolved through thousands of years of warfare against increasingly sophisticated enemies. Humanity understood something the Council species had forgotten. Sometimes, peace could only be maintained through the willingness to wage war more effectively than your enemies. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valoran system. Sensors immediately painted a nightmare scenario. The Krell had positioned their ships in a blockade formation around the primary world. Smaller craft moved between the surface and the capital ships, clearly transporting captured Valorans. 3 of the planet's moons showed signs of recent bombardment. The Krell were being thorough in their destruction. Chun did not hesitate or announce their presence. He simply gave the order that would change everything. All ships, weapons free. Target the transports first. Save as many as you can. Then we eliminate the blockade. The human fleet accelerated into the system at combat speed, and the Krell Dominion was about to learn why Earth was called a death world. Asterisk. War without mercy. A first Krell transport exploded before its crew understood they were under attack. The TDF Relentless had fired a spread of kinetic missiles from maximum range, the projectiles accelerating to a significant fraction of light speed before impact. The transport simply ceased to exist, vaporized in a flash of superheated metal and expanding gas. Chun watched the tactical display with cold calculation. The transport had been empty, returning to the surface for another load of prisoners. Good. That meant no Valoran casualties. The Krell fleet reacted with the speed of experienced predators. Their capital ships broke formation and turned to face this new threat, weapons charging and fighter craft launching from internal bays. The Krell commander, a scarred veteran named Thrak, studied the approaching human ships with interest. He had heard rumors of the Deathworld species, but had never encountered them in battle. 8 ships against his 17 seemed like arrogance or desperation. He would enjoy teaching these newcomers their place in the galactic hierarchy. Commander Hayes coordinated the human attack with precision, born from countless simulations and real combat experience. The destroyers broke formation and accelerated on independent vectors, forcing the Krell to split their attention. The frigates provided electronic warfare support, jamming Krell targeting systems and creating false sensor readings. The Relentless and the other heavy units drove straight toward the center of the enemy formation, like a spear thrust at the heart. The space between the fleets filled with weapons. Fire. Krell plasma cannons sent superheated bolts across the void, designed to melt through armor and boil the atmosphere inside ships. Human point defense systems intercepted most of them, computer-guided lasers destroying incoming fire with microsecond precision. What got through struck reinforced armor plating designed to withstand meteor impacts at relativistic speeds. The Relentless shuddered under the impacts, but maintained course and speed. Chun's tactical doctrine was simple and brutal. Humans had learned warfare fighting each other for thousands of years before reaching the stars. They understood momentum, flanking maneuvers, and the psychological impact of aggressive action. While the Krell tried to establish firing solutions on fast-moving destroyers, Chun brought the Relentless into knife-fighting range of their flagship. At 300 kilometers, he unleashed everything the cruiser had. Missiles, railgun rounds, and directed energy weapons converged on a single target. The Krell flagship's shields collapsed under the sustained barrage. Armor plating designed to resist standard Council weapons proved inadequate against human military technology refined through centuries of warfare. Secondary explosions rippled across the ship's hull as ammunition stores and fuel tanks ignited. The flagship began breaking apart, its structural integrity compromised beyond recovery. Thrak felt his ship dying around him. He had commanded this vessel for 12 years, conquering 7 systems and defeating twice that many rivals within his own species. Now a single human ship had crippled him in less than 4 minutes of combat. He broadcast orders to his remaining vessels, demanding they focus fire on the human cruiser, but the Deathworlders had already anticipated this response. The destroyers swept through the Krell formation, like wolves among sheep, targeting engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. On the planet's surface, Major Sophia Reeves felt the drop pod shake violently as it punched through the atmosphere. Around her, 40 Marines prepared for combat in conditions they had trained for, but never truly experienced. The Valoran capital city sprawled below them, a masterpiece of organic architecture now scarred by bombardment and fire. Krell ground forces had established positions throughout the urban landscape, hunting the remaining population with methodical efficiency. The pods hit the ground in a residential district already cleared by Krell hunting packs. Reeves kicked open the pod door and rolled out, her rifle already tracking for targets. The Marines spread out with practiced efficiency, establishing a defensive perimeter in seconds. The air smelled of smoke and something sweet that Reeves realized was Valoran blood. Bodies littered the streets, civilians who had died trying to flee or hide from an enemy they could not comprehend. Krell hunting pack appeared around a corner, dragging 3 Valoran civilians behind them on restraints. The aliens were massive, nearly 3 meters tall and covered in thick scaled hide. They moved with the confident swagger of apex predators who had never encountered meaningful resistance. That confidence died when Reeves opened fire. The electromagnetic rifle sent hypersonic rounds through Krell armor like it was paper. The lead hunter dropped, its chest cavity opened by the impact. The others tried to scatter, but the Marines had already established overlapping fields of fire. The entire pack died in less than 6 seconds. The rescued Valorans stared at their saviors with a mixture of gratitude and terror. Reeves understood their confusion. Humans looked relatively harmless compared to the Krell, smaller and less physically imposing. But the Valorans were learning what the galaxy was slowly discovering. Humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every single day. They had developed technology, tactics, and psychology specifically designed for survival against impossible odds. That made them the most dangerous species in known space when properly motivated. Reeves activated her communication link. All units begin search and rescue operations. Rules of engagement are weapons-free on all Krell forces. Prioritize civilian evacuation to designated safe zones. Remember, we are here to save lives, so let us make sure we save as many as possible. The Marines moved into the ruined city with purpose. They had trained for urban combat in environments ranging from Earth's desert cities to the frozen halves of Europa. A burning alien metropolis was just another mission, another chance to prove that humanity's violent history could be channeled toward protecting those who could not protect themselves. Dr. Elizabeth Park established a field hospital in what had been a Valoran medical facility. The local doctors watched in amazement as human medics worked on injured civilians with equipment and techniques completely foreign to Council medicine. Park found herself explaining human medical philosophy to a Valoran physician named Torin while simultaneously treating a child with severe burns. We evolved to survive terrible injuries. Our medicine reflects that. We can keep someone alive through trauma that would kill most species instantly. Asterisk. Torin observed the human doctor working with controlled urgency. Your hands move so quickly, and you seem to anticipate complications before they occur. How is this possible? Park smiled grimly while injecting synthetic blood plasma into her patient. Because humans hurt each other for thousands of years before we reached the stars. We got very good at fixing the damage we caused. War taught us medicine. Now we use those lessons to save lives instead of taking them in orbit. The battle reached its critical point. The Krell had lost 9 ships, and the remainder were attempting to retreat to the outer system. Chun would not allow it. He had come here to eliminate the threat completely, not simply drive it away to attack again later. The human fleet pursued relentlessly, destroying Krell ships as they tried to flee. It was not honorable or fair, But Chun had learned long ago that honor meant nothing to dead civilians. The Krell understood only strength, so he would demonstrate strength until they had no capacity to threaten the Valorans ever again. Thrax's damaged flagship limped toward the system's edge, trailing atmosphere and debris. He watched his fleet dissolve under human assault and felt something unfamiliar. Fear. The Deathworlders fought with a combination of technological superiority and tactical aggression that overwhelmed every defensive measure. They anticipated his moves before he made them. They exploited weaknesses in his formations before he recognized them himself. This was not luck or numerical advantage. This was a species bred for warfare, demonstrating exactly how effective they could be. Asterisk. Commander Walsh reported from her position coordinating fleet operations. Final Krell capital ship is breaking up. Estimate total enemy combat effectiveness at 0. We have confirmed kills on 16 vessels. 1 escaped to hyperspace, but it is too damaged to pose any immediate threat. Human casualties are 3 dead, 17 wounded. All ships remain combat capable. Chun felt the weight of those 3 deaths. Every casualty report carried names of people he had trained with, served beside, trusted with his life. But he also knew they had accomplished something extraordinary. 8 ships had destroyed an invasion force and saved an entire civilization. The 3 who died had not died for nothing. Asterisk. On the surface, Reeves coordinated with Valoran security forces, who had emerged from hiding once the Krell retreat became obvious. She found herself working with a security commander named Lyra, trying to establish order in a city traumatized by invasion. Lyra watched human Marines move through the ruins with practiced efficiency, clearing buildings and securing areas with speed that seemed impossible. Your soldiers, they fight without rest. They have been in combat for 18 hours. Do they not need to recover? Reeves checked her equipment while directing her teams. We can go another 30 hours before we need real rest. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We can operate under stress longer than most species can stay conscious. It is just biology. She did not mention the stimulants, the training, or the sheer stubborn determination that kept Marines functioning when their bodies screamed for rest. Some things were better demonstrated than explained. The Krell ground forces realized their orbital support had been eliminated and their extraction was not coming. They began surrendering in groups, something that surprised both the humans and Valorans. Reeves established prisoner processing centers, treating the captured Krell with firm efficiency. She would not abuse prisoners, but she made certain they understood their situation had fundamentally changed. The hunters had become the hunted, and mercy would be extended only as long as they cooperated completely. Chun received a transmission from the Valoran planetary government 3 hours after the last. Krell's ship was destroyed. The speaker was an elegant alien named Cerise, whose crystalline features showed exhaustion and relief in equal measure. Captain Chun, your actions have saved our species from extinction. We cannot adequately express our gratitude. The Council told us no one would come. They said we should negotiate with the Krell, find diplomatic solutions. You simply came and fought for us. Chun felt uncomfortable with the praise. We did what needed to be done. The Krell would not have stopped until your people were extinct or enslaved. Sometimes the only language aggressors understand is force. We spoke it clearly enough that they will think twice before threatening anyone in this sector again. He paused, then added something that had been bothering him since they arrived. Your people deserved better from the Council. They abandoned you to maintain their comfortable illusions about galactic civilization. That is unacceptable. The aftermath took 3 days to manage fully. Human engineering teams helped restore critical infrastructure. Medical personnel treated thousands of wounded Valorans. Marines trained local security forces in basic defensive tactics, hoping they would never need them, but ensuring they would not be helpless if another threat emerged. Chun coordinated with Earth Command, preparing reports that would inevitably cause political complications, but might also force the Council to reconsider their policies. Admiral Okonkwo sent a private message to Chun on the fourth day. The Council is furious. They are calling your actions an unauthorized military intervention and demanding explanations. Several member species are threatening sanctions against Earth. Chun read the message and felt no regret. And the Valorans? Okonkwo's response came back immediately. The Valorans are alive. Sometimes that is all that matters. Earth stands behind your actions, officially or not. Come home, Captain. We will handle the politics. The human fleet prepared to depart, leaving behind medical supplies, defensive satellites, and a promise. If anyone threatened the Valorans again, humanity would return with greater force. The Galactic Council could issue sanctions and make diplomatic protests. Earth had proven something more important. When peaceful species needed protection, the Deathworlders would answer. Not with committees or negotiations, but with ships, soldiers, and the absolute conviction that some things were worth fighting for. The galaxy was slowly learning that humanity's capacity for violence was matched only by their willingness to use it defending those who could not defend themselves. That made them dangerous, unpredictable, and absolutely necessary in a universe where predators like the Krell still prowled the stars hunting for easy prey. Asterisk.